Assalamu alaikum guys. Today we are discussing about the clavicle, which is a long bone, and it is also the only long bone that lies horizontally. First of all, we will start with its name, clavicle. It is very first bone of the upper limb when we start from our chest towards the limb. Okay, right. And first of all, we will discuss about its name. Its name clavicle is derived from a Latin word which means a small key. This is named because of its key shape, because it resembles the key shape. Right after its name, we will discuss about its size determination. Okay, as far as its side determination is concerned, there are only two or three points which we should remember in order to identify its side. First of all, its medial end is convex forward, right, and this is 2/3 of the total shaft, and its lateral end is concave forward, and it is to 1/3 of the total length of the shaft. Right, these are the 2 points for the identification of the side. And the third and the last point is that there is a subclavian groove on inferior surface of the clavicle. Right, this is all about the side determination of the bone clavicle. And I am showing here a rough diagram of clavicle. That is, look, this is the anterior view of clavicle, and this one is the 2/3 medial part, right, and you can look that this is convex forward, and this is the lateral 1/3, right, and this lateral 1/3 is concave forward, right. Okay, this is the medial end, medial 2/3 which is convex forward. This is lateral 1/3 which is concave forward, right. And when we talk about the subclavian groove, this is the superior view, right. Superior view, on the superior surface there is no subclavian groove, while when we look at the inferior view, that the inferior surface has subclavian groove. These 3 points are necessary to in order to mark its side, right. First one is the medial end 2/3 convex forward, second one lateral 1/3 concave forward, third one and the last one is subclavian groove on the inferior side. This is all about the side determination of clavicle, right. Now we look at the peculiarities, and peculiarities mean these are the distinctions of the clavicle. I mean, these points make the clavicle bone different from other bones. So these are the peculiarities, right. Okay, first is the only long bone which is horizontal, right. No medullary cavity, okay. Now what is medullary cavity? Medullary cavity means the cavity which is usually present in the bone, right. This cavity is usually filled with the bone marrow. As we have mentioned that the clavicle bone has no medullary cavity, so it does not have any sort of bone marrow, right. Okay, this is its peculiarity. Again, it is first bone to start ossifying, right. Right, it is first bone in the human body which starts ossifying, because ossifying means that is the conversion of the cartilaginous cell into the bony cells. Okay, and it ossifies in membrane. This is also an important thing, ossifies in membrane. Okay, and after that there is last point, which is it is subcutaneous throughout. Right. Subcutaneous means it lies just beneath the skin. Okay, we will look back at its peculiarities. That is, it is only long bone which lies horizontally, right? The other one is no medullary cavity. Medullary cavity means the cavity which has bone marrow. No medullary cavity shows that it does not have any sort of bone marrow. Okay, this bone is the first bone to start ossifying, and it ossifies in membrane. It is subcutaneous throughout. This is very important MCQ, that is, it is subcutaneous throughout. It lies beneath the skin. After peculiarities, we discuss about the features of the bone, I mean structure of the bone. Okay, first of all we discuss about its lateral end. Its lateral end has two borders and two surfaces, right? And now, what is the border, what is the surface? Surface means anything that is flat, right? For example, this is my ball point and it's this side, this aspect is flat, so it is called surface of ball point, right? And border is any sharp boundary between the two surfaces, right? Look, this side, sideways, this aspect, this is the border of the ball point. This is the difference between the surface and the border. Okay, its lateral end has two borders. These borders are anterior and posterior. Similarly, its surfaces are superior and inferior, right? Its anterior border is concave forward, and its posterior border is convex backward, as it is suggested by the diagram. This is the anterior border, and we can look that we can see that this is the concave forward, right? And this is its posterior border, and it is visible that it is convex backward, concave forward, convex backward, right? And now we discuss about its surfaces. Its superior surface, look, this is flattened from above downward. I can't show this image because it can be shown only in the 3D, right? This is flattened from above downward, and this is its inferior surface. Look, this inferior surface has an elevation. This elevation is called conite tubercle, right? On lateral aspect of this tubercle is a ridge. This ridge is called trapezoid ridge, right? These are mean to the attachment of the ligaments. We will discuss about these ligaments later. Just remember that on the lateral end, anterior surface is concave forward, posterior one is convex backward, and its superior surface is flattened from above to downward, and its inferior surface has an elevation, that is conite tubercle, and a ridge. This is called trapezoid ridge. Okay, now we will discuss about its medial two-third. Its medial two-third has four surfaces. Okay, it does not have any border. It has four surfaces, four flat surfaces. Okay, these flat surfaces, this is the superior one, right? This is rough. On the medial two-third, the superior surface is rough, posterior surface is smooth, and the inferior surface has an oval depression. This is an oval depression and it is for the attachment of ligaments. We will discuss about these later, right? And its anterior surface is gives attachment to the muscles. We will discuss about them later in the attachments. Okay, this was all about its lateral and medial ends. Now we will talk about the joints formed by clavicle. These are the joints. Okay, clavicle formed on lateral side. It joins with the acromion process of scapula to form acromioclavicular joint. Acromioclavicular joint, right? And on medial side it forms joint with the manubrium of sternum or sternal manubrium of sternum to form sternoclavicular joint. Sternoclavicular joint. Okay, after the joints we will discuss about its attachments. Right, when we talk about its attachments, that its lateral end, as we have discussed that here, that the lateral end forms joint with the acromion process of scapula. This joint is called the acromioclavicular joint. Okay, we know that every joint has a capsule to support and to provide lubrication between the bones. This capsule is attached on the lateral end, right? This is the diagram and we will discuss the attachments here. That this is the inferior view of the clavicle, right? Inferior view of the clavicle, and this is right clavicle. You have to remember that this is the right clavicle. And point of identification, I am going to repeat that this is the medial 2/3 convex forward. Okay, and there is another problem, that how we should identify that this is the anterior side, this is the posterior side. Okay, look, according to the anatomical position, standard anatomical position, we consider the other person which is being observed, which is the specimen, to be standing in front of us, facing forward, facing toward us. Okay, and look, this is the clavicle, right, of the man who is standing in front of us, and this is its medial 2/3, this is its lateral 1/3, and you can observe that the medial 2/3 is convex forward and the lateral 1/3 is concave forward, right? And its upper surface is smooth while the inferior surface has a subclavian groove. Okay, so it is a clavicle on the right side. You can put it on your body to observe. Okay, now we will discuss about these attachments. The lateral end, this is the lateral end. Lateral end has an attachment of capsule. This capsule belongs to the acromioclavicular joint. Similarly, the medial end also has a capsule. This capsule belongs to the sternoclavicular joint. Okay, after these joints we talk about the shaft, that between the ends, the body of the bone between the ends is called shaft. Okay, actually the shaft is divided between the medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3. Okay, now first we discuss about the lateral 1/3. This is the lateral 1/3. Okay, this is the lateral 1/3 and this is the lateral 1/3 anterior side. Okay, anterior border, you can also say. This is the anterior border and it gives origin to, remember that the red color is used for the origin of the muscle and black color is used here to show the insertion of the muscle, right? The anterior side of the lateral 1/3 gives origin to deltoid muscle, right? While the posterior side of the lateral 1/3 gives insertion to trapezius muscle. Okay, and when we look at the lateral end from the inferior side, that is the inferior view, we observe conite tubercle, as I have mentioned in structure, conite tubercle and trapezoid ridge. The conite tubercle and trapezoid ridge are made for the attachment of trapezoid and conite parts of the coracoclavicular ligament. As the name suggests, coracoclavicular ligament. It attaches the coracoid process of scapula to the clavicle, right? Okay, now we come to the medial two-third of clavicle. This is the medial two-third of clavicle, right? And we have this is the anterior surface of the medial two-third, and it gives origin to the pectoralis major muscle, right? The medial two-third on anterior side gives origin to pectoralis major muscle, while the upper half of superior surface gives origin to the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Remember that this is the only clavicular head of sternocleidomastoid muscle. Okay, its other head is not attached on clavicle, and we will discuss about that head later. And the sternocleidomastoid muscle is attached on the superior surface of clavicle, and the superior surface is rough. Okay, this is attached on the superior surface and half of the superior surface. And now we come to the inferior view. On the inferior view, this is shown about the part of the pectoralis major, and this is a small muscle. Actually, it is not attached on the inferior side, right? As we can see that this is present on the posterior side, right? Just there. Just this is the sternohyoid muscle, which is present on the posterior side of the clavicle and the posterior side of medial end. This is the point to be remembered. Okay, on the superior side, superior surface, we have already mentioned that there is a groove called subclavian groove. As the name suggests, this subclavian groove gives insertion to the subclavius muscle, right? It gives insertion to the subclavius muscle, and the border of the subclavian groove gives insertion to the clavipectoral fascia, right? Okay, we have discussed the attachments, and now we discuss about the clinicals of clavicle. Clinicals. Okay. First of all, we discuss about its fracture. Most common site of the fracture of clavicle bone is the junction of medial two-third and lateral one-third. I mean this point. This is the site which is mostly affected, and it is how we can identify. Now there is a hint to identify that the clavicle bone is fractured. Okay, our lateral end transmits the weight of the upper limb to the medial end, and the medial end transmits it to the axial skeleton through sternum, right? Okay, the lateral end is supported with these muscles, and these muscles these muscles transmit the weight of the upper limb to the clavicle, and the clavicle then transmits them to axial skeleton, as we have already mentioned. In case the clavicle bone is fractured, the trapezius muscle cannot alone cannot alone support that bone. Okay, when it is broken, the lateral end is compressed down because of the weight of the upper limb. So we can easily identify the fracture of the clavicle if the lateral end is pushed downward, right? Okay, the next clinical is the cleidocranial dysostis. Cleidocranial dysostosis. orthosis, right? In this clinic actually there is absence or underdevelopment of clavicle. Okay, and as a result shoulders can too. Okay, now this is all about clavicle. Now we have a quick review of clavicle. That the word clavicle is derived from Latin word which is known which means small key, and we come to its side determination. Its medial end is convex forward, lateral end is concave forward, and its inferior surface has a groove called subclavian groove. This is about the side determination. When we talk about its peculiarities, it is the only long bone which is present horizontally. It does not have any medullary cavity. It is first bone to start ossifying. It ossifies in membrane, and it is subcutaneous throughout. Okay, when we talk about its bony features, its lateral end has two surfaces. Two borders are anterior and posterior. Two surfaces are superior and inferior. Okay, this is the anterior border of lateral end. This is concave forward. This is the posterior border of lateral end of clavicle. It is convex backward. This is the superior surface of the lateral end, right? And this is the inferior surface of lateral end. The inferior surface have an elevation called conite tubercle, and it also have a ridge which is called the trapezoid ridge. After bony features, we discuss about its joints. It forms the acromioclavicular joint with the acromion process of scapula on lateral end, and forms sternoclavicular joint with the sternal manubrae on medial side. And about its attachments, on the anterior aspect of its lateral end there is origin of deltoid muscle, and on the posterior aspect of its lateral end there is insertion of trapezius muscle. On its inferior aspect, when we look about that, the lateral end has the attachment of the capsule of acromioclavicular joint, and the conite tubercle and trapezoid ridge are used for the attachment of the trapezoid and conite parts of the coracoclavicular ligament. The coracoclavicular ligament attaches the coracoid process of scapula to the clavicle, and the anterior aspect of the medial two-third gives attachment to the pectoralis major. The superior half of the rough surface, right? The half of the rough surface, the rough surface is superior. It gives origin to the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and it is not the whole sternocleidomastoid muscle. It is only the clavicular head of the sternocleidoid muscle. Okay, and its posterior border on near the medial end, its posterior surface gives origin to the sternohyoid muscle, and there is also attachment of the costoclavicular ligament on the inferior side near the medial end, right? And there is a subclavian groove on half of the inferior surface of medial two-third. This subclavian groove gives insertion to the subclavius muscle, and the border of the subclavian groove gives attachment to the clavipectoral fascia, right? This is all about the attachments, and now we take a quick review about the clinicals. That sometimes the bone is fractured, and why does this fracture occur? This fracture occurs when we fall with an outstretched hand, right? This outstretched hand fall results in the fracture of the clavicle. The fracture site is the junction between the medial two-third and lateral one-third, right? This fracture results in the depression of lateral one-third and elevation of medial two-third, and this is also a landmark and symptom to identify the fracture of clavicle. The second clinical is the developmental clinical, right? In this case, in the development there is complete absence of clavicle, or underdevelopment of clavicle. As a result, the shoulders can droop, that is, they can be compressed near each other, right? They can be compressed so the shoulders can easily touch sternum from both sides, right? This is called the cleidocranial dysostosis. This is all about the clavicle. Okay guys, hope you enjoy today's video and hope you will this will help you in your medical studies. Okay, take care, bye, Allah Hafiz.